H.R. 2578, sponsored by our colleague Representative Denham, is nearly identical to legislation that was considered last month and would do real harm to the Merced Wild and Scenic River. Congress has never before authorized the flooding of a designated wild and scenic river, and this measure must be considered very, very carefully. However, the potential damage done to the Merced by H.R. 2578 pales in comparison to the destruction that would result from Mr. McCarthy's Wilderness and Roadless Area Release Bill. This bill would strip environmental protection from tens of millions of acres of public lands, opening up some of our country's most scenic forests and wildlands to destructive development. Congress has provided our federal land management agencies clear direction to identify federal land with wilderness characteristics and preserve those characteristics until Congress can make a final decision to designate those areas or to release them. Congress also directed the agency to provide recommendations regarding which areas should be designated. By protecting these areas until Congress can take action, BLM is preserving the right of Congress to make the ultimate decision on how these pristine places should be managed. Rather than preserving the right to make the ultimate decision, this bill would short-circuit the process by releasing all wilderness study areas that were not recommended for wilderness designation by the agencies, in effect turning the decision over to BLM and Forest Service. From the Bodie Mountains in California to the Ocala National Forest in Florida, hundreds of potential wilderness areas would be lost to logging, mining, road construction, and other activities that would permanently deface the natural landscape. Once these wilderness characteristics are gone, they can never be replaced. And by removing the protection from these lands prematurely, Congress makes that loss more likely and ties its own hands in future efforts to designate wilderness areas. The legislation would remove existing protections for nearly 60 million acres of unroaded national forests. These lands were set aside in 2001 by the Roadless Rule, which established a nationwide conservation policy for roadless areas. This rule followed years of public outreach to local stakeholders, yet despite the popularity of that initiative, H.R. 1581 would exempt the national forest system from that rule. All told, H.R. 1581 would have devastating impacts on some of our nation's most pristine public lands. If these natural wonders are destroyed by unchecked development, it would be ruinous for small business that thrive on hikers, bikers, anglers, and hunters who enjoy this area. It would degrade the quality of life for millions of Americans who live and work near these protected places, and it would deprive future generations of the chance to enjoy our country's rich natural heritage. Simply throwing our hands up and passing an across-the-board release is irresponsible. It is unfair to the local communities, and it is shirking the responsibilities that Congress reserved for itself when it passed the Wilderness Act more than 40 years ago. In closing, Mr. Chairman, I would like to welcome all our witnesses here today. In particular, I appreciate Secretary Babbitt's decision to testify and for being here. His extensive record of public service and expertise on these issues will make his testimony invaluable. With that, Mr. Chairman, let me yield back.